We're going to look at English Pace 1105, and there's a couple pages here about poetry. And again, this is a spot where I know I often have to sit down with students and try to explain it and help them hear it and understand what we're talking about with poetry. I'm going to actually start with figuring out the accented and unaccented and how we do that, and then work backwards to explain a couple of the terms here on page 24. Accented syllables are the syllables that we tend to, when we're singing a song, a hymn, or poetry, it kind of gives it that sing-songy sound, and we put an emphasis on a particular word. I'm going to start with this familiar song, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. And I have it written out right here. If I put the emphasis on the second syllable, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me, it kind of has that rhythm to it that we're familiar with, okay? If I were to try to put the emphasis on the other syllable, okay, this is what it would sound like. So on the first syllable, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. See how awkward that sounds? So that's not the normal rhythm, and that's not the way that we would mark it with the accents. So, as they mentioned here in the pace, and let me get some red ink here to mark this. We put a dash over the syllable that has the emphasis, amaze, and then the next syllable is unaccented, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me, okay? So we can go through and just quickly mark what the rhythm looks like with the little smiley face for the unaccented and this dash here above the accented syllable. And again, it sounds awkward if you tried to do it the other way, all right? Let's take one of the couple lines from one of the poems that's here in the pace. It says, all that is beautiful, all that is best, joy of activity, calmness of rest. Now again, let's think about the accent either needs to be on the first syllable or the last, okay? So what if I tried it on the last syllable and had unaccented, unaccented, accented? And then you say, well, there's only one word in that one. Well, there's three syllables, okay? So we have three syllables here, beautiful, three syllables, all that is three syllables. Now, sometimes at the end of a line, even if there's only one word, one syllable, it just kind of carries over. And we see that in hymns, that we sing. We'll get to the end of a line and hold it out for a couple of beats, all right? That's the idea. Three syllables, activity, three syllables, an activity, calmness of. So we're going to put a mark over each syllable, not each word, each syllable. So if I put the accent on the first one, on the last one, all that is beautiful, all that is best, joy of activity, calmness of rest. Ugh. That does not sound very poetic at all, and that does not sound very pretty. All right, so let's try it again. I'm going to overemphasize the first syllable this time. All that is beautiful, all that is best, joy of activity, calmness of rest. And so the accents would look like this. So we put the accent over the first syllable, we put the unaccented over the second ones, and so now we have a pattern going, and it should continue through that whole poem with the same pattern of the rhythm, all right? Let's take these two lines from a different poem. If I accented the first one, like I did up here, it would sound like, if you can't be a pine on the top of, Again, that just doesn't sound right. So let's emphasize the last syllable, see if it sounds better. If you can't be a pine on the top of a hill, be a scrub in the valley, but be, all right? So this one, the accent is on the last syllable. Again, not word, syllable. Be a scrub in the valley, but be. And so we're putting the unaccented mark over the first two syllables and the accent on the last syllable. Each of these sections, okay? They have lines drawn, and that separates it into little sections of 3 syllables. In this poem, this Amazing Grace, it's 2 syllables, okay? Each of these little sections is called a foot. I have no idea where they came up with that, but that's what they call it in poetry. It's a foot. So each foot has the same pattern. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, per line here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 feet per line. Let's go back now to page 24 and just unlock some of this meaning here. We have 4 patterns. One is called iambic, then we have anapestic, trochaic, and dactylic. All right? They do have the pronunciations there, but a lot of students doing the paces don't read that or think about it or hear what it sounds like. All right, so let's use these terms a few times. Notice in iambic, we have 2 syllables, and the emphasis is on the second syllable. So it's the unaccented followed by the accented, and it would sound like da-dum, okay? Da-dum, 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 da-dum. Anapestic has 3 syllables, da-da-da, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum. So that's what that's supposed to sound like. Da-da-dum, 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 da-da-dum. Trochaic, back to 2 syllables, but the emphasis is on the first. Da-dum, dum-da, 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 dum-da. All right, dactylic, 3 syllables. The emphasis is on the first. Dum-da-da, dum-da-da, dum-da-da-dum. Then they give an example, for each of these. Would you be free from your burden of sin is the dactylic, and you can read those others. Try to hear, okay, what that's talking about. And then the question down here at the bottom, how many feet are in the trochaic example? So you'd look up here and see how many sections make up that line of poetry, all right? So anyways, I hope that helps, and by hearing it and then marking it correctly, that you'll be able to answer the rest of the questions as you work through this section of the PACE.